All right, we're back straight from the beach.
Howdy.
We're going to be working step 4 today, you guys. As always, we will start with the serenity prayer. God,
Grant me
the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Alright, so this is the step that everybody is so hesitant.
It's the ooey gooey.
Or some people just aren't doing it wholeheartedly. And so it's not a fearless moral inventory unless you practice honesty and just be real with yourself, keep it 100, and it'll work through.
This is actually a working step. The first 3 were just
They're very important, but they were something that you could do mentally, something that didn't take some actual deep search of ourselves and to be honest with ourselves, you know? So let's start reading it off. The step is: we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. The purpose of a searching and fearless moral inventory is to sort through the confusion and the contradiction of our lives so that we can find out who we really are. We are starting a new way of life and need to be rid of the burdens and the traps that controlled us and prevented our growth.
As we approach this step, most of us are afraid that there are monsters inside of us that, if released, will destroy us. This fear can cause us to put off our inventory or may even prevent us from taking this crucial step. Crucial. We have found that fear is a lack of faith. Let's say that again. Fear is a lack of faith. And we have found a loving personal God to whom we can turn. We no longer need to be afraid.
Alright, so first of all, just in this little 2 paragraphs that we have read so far, the purpose of searching a fearless moral inventory is to sort through the confusion and the contradiction of our lives. So we've had a lot of contradiction and we had a lot of confusion. Sometimes all the chaos that we've committed, all the harms that we've committed, all the resentments that we've held on to,
Self-will.
they cause confusion in our life. They cause a lot of contradictory with what we say we want and our actions. There's a lot of things that we verbally want and that sometimes we really do want them from inside, but our actions prove differently. And not only for ourselves, but other people. They see that. They see that we say one thing and we can never follow through with it. So this step is basically trying to give us a straight and narrow path to take, but it's going to guide us on how to follow that road, because we can't walk that road when we still have all this confusion, all this chaos, and all this contradiction in our lives. We have been experts at self-deception and rationalization. By writing our inventory, we can overcome these obstacles. A written inventory will unlock parts of our subconscious that remain hidden when we simply think about or talk about who we are. Once it's all down on paper, it's much easier to see and much harder to deny our true nature. Honest self-assessment is one of the keys to a new way of life. Okay, so let me break that down a little bit. So in our life, we work like this. There's a part of our body, our soul, that we keep all that shit, all that hurt, all that pain, all that grimy ass shit that we've ever done. We keep it hidden because sometimes we want to deny that we actually got down like that. Sometimes we don't want people to know that we could get that grimy. And so we keep it hidden inside. We never dealt with it, so we carry it with us. And it started off with whatever first crime, first thing that we've done that was negative, first pain that we've caused, first resentment that we've ever held, and it sat back there. And instead of bringing it out and dealing with it, what do? We committed another crime, we harmed another person, we've had another resentment, and what do we do with that? We piled it up on top of that one. We done something else, and then next thing you know, that motherfucking luggage got heavy as fuck. We just started putting more and more stuff in there, and we never actually dealt with anything. And then now we don't really know who we really are, because in reality we haven't even dealt with the stuff to be able to grow into that person that we're becoming, because everything is holding us down. It's holding us back to being who we really are. And so a self-assessment is basically putting it out there and saying, okay, this is the stuff that I've done, okay? Not to harm anybody, not to hurt yourself, but just so you can see it on paper, okay, this is the things that I've done. Now is more clearly to deal with this shit instead of having it all piled up inside. And when they say a fearless inventory, it means that you do it wholeheartedly. You don't half-ass shit around here. You fucking do it, and you be honest with yourself. Pull all that shit out. All that shit that you thought was just too grimy, that you never wanted to expose to anybody. In order for this shit to work, you have to be honest and bring all that out into the open.
Your deepest, darkest secrets. You have to bring it all out. That way, when you go into your recovery, it's you're starting new. You're starting afresh. Like, you're able to put all that out, fix it, and move on. And start that new life that you guys all deserve. Because
if you don't do it, if you don't do this shit right, I've done some grimy ass shit, and sometimes I hate to even think about it. It's because it's painful that I believe that a person like me, a father, a husband, you know what I mean, a son, would do some shit like shit that I done. But unless I actually did my step the way I did it, honestly, I was never gonna be able to overcome that. That was always gonna be hindering me and holding me back. So that's why it's important to do this step thoroughly and look inside yourself. And sometimes it's a step that doesn't end, because you write it down next week, you might be reminded of something like, shit, I remember I did that. Let me go back. Let me add that shit to my list of other shit that I've done, other harms, other resentments that I have. So it's a step that does keep going, but we try our best to be honest and put out what we do know, what we can. And let's go on.
So it says, let's face it, when we were not honest with ourselves. We become honest with ourselves when we admit that addiction has defeated us and that we need help. It took a long time to admit that we were beaten. We found that we do not recover physically, mentally, and spiritually overnight. Step 4 will help us towards our recovery. Most of us find that we were neither as terrible nor as wonderful as we supposed. We are surprised to find that we have good points in our inventory. Anyone who has some time in the program and has worked this step will tell you that step 4 is a turning point in their life.
Why? Why is step 4 a turning point in your life? Let me tell you why. Because we lived our whole life carrying this luggage, and it's like, if you think about it, it's like, instead of having it inside us, let's say you're carrying a bag, a sack, and all your harms and all your resentments, you've been throwing them in there, and it gets heavy as fuck. And
a subconscious like bag lady.
And so, yeah, for real.
Visualize.
And it's like, so you're carrying this shit around for your whole life, man. Years after years in addiction, and all the hurt, all the pain, all this shit goes in that bag. So this step changes your life, because when you put it out there, remember, you're only as sick as your sins, right? And your secrets.
Sick as your secrets, yes.
You know, so it's like, that's how sick you are. But once you bring that shit out into the light, it's no longer in the darkness.
And it doesn't have any power over you anymore.
It doesn't affect you anymore. So it's like a turning point in your life, because you no longer walk with that heavy ass bag no more. You're alive. You're fucking free. You're walking with your little pep in your step. You know what I mean? So let me go on. Some of us make a mistake of approaching this 4th step as if it were a confession of how horrible we are. What a bad person we have been. In this way of life, a binge of emotional sorrow could be dangerous. Right? No, none of that feeling bad for yourself. That little ass violin and shit. Put that shit out. This is not a purpose of the 4th step. We are trying to free ourselves of living in old, useless patterns. We take the 4th step to grow and to gain strength and insight. We may approach the 4th step in a number of ways. To have faith and courage to write a fearless inventory, steps 1, 2, and 3 are the necessary preparations for this. It is advisable that before we start, we go over the first 3 steps with a sponsor. We get comfortable with our understanding of the steps. We allow ourselves the privilege of feeling good about what we are doing. We have been thrashing about for a long time and have gotten nowhere. Now we start the fourth step and let go of fear.
Let go and let God.
We simply put it on paper to the best of our present ability. Like I said, it's not something where you're going to sit there and it's the best of your ability, okay? And you do it not with fear. Don't look at the shit with fear. Remember, every time that you're wrong, you celebrate that shit because you're elevating your game. You know what I mean? You're doing this step to take that next step. You know what I mean? Like, you have to go through these steps. And this is the step that's going to help you walk a little lighter.
We must be done with the past, not cling to it. We want to look at our past in face, see it for what it really was, and release it so we can live today.
Damn.
The past for most of us has been a ghost in the closet. We have been afraid to open that closet for fear of what the ghost may do to us. We do not have to look at the past alone. Our will and our lives are now in the hands of our higher power. Writing a thorough and honest inventory seems impossible. It was, as long as we were operating under our own power.
Yes.
We take very few quiet moments before writing and ask for the strength to be fearless and thorough. So that's basically saying, like, just pray about it, sit down, and just do the best that you can. Like he said, like, if you think of something later on, you could write it on your list. And but don't, like, overthink it. Just let it flow. And if it gets too much, take a step back. I know, like, when I get overwhelmed, I'll remove myself from that situation. I'll breathe, I'll pray, have a lollipop, go right back. In step 4, we begin to get in touch with ourselves. We write our liabilities such as guilt, shame, remorse, self-pity, resentment, anger, depression, frustration, confusion, loneliness, anxiety, betrayal, hopelessness, failure, fear, and denial.
Okay.
That's a lot. I ran out of fingers.
We write about the things that bother us here and now. We have a tendency to think negatively, some of us. So putting it out on paper gives us a chance to look more positively at what is happening. Assess must also be considered. If we are to get an accurate and complete picture of ourselves, this is very difficult for most of us, because it is hard to accept that we have a good qualities. However, we all have assets, many of them newly found in the program, such as being clean, open-mindedness, God awareness, honesty with others, acceptance, positive actions, sharing willingness, courage, faith, caring, gratitude, kindness, generosity. Also, our inventories usually include material on relationships. We'll get to more on that later. We review our past performances and our present behaviors to see what we want to keep and what we want to discard. Remember, not everything that you've ever done has been negative. You've done some good shit, you know? We've done some things sometimes that we surprised ourselves. Like, damn, did I just do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you're not all bad, you know what I mean? We're not doing this shit to try to make ourselves feel bad and all shame ourselves, you know what I mean? We're just doing an inventory, a self-assessment.
So we can't get rid of the bad that we have done.
You want to get rid of those character defects, okay? I know some people get turned on by them and whatnot, you know what I mean? But character defects are what you're asking God to cleanse you from, and you're asking God to take away those imperfections.
So that you could be a better person and that you could live a better life in your recovery and better than what we were ultimately living.
Purposeful life, you know what I mean?
Did you just gangbang on them?
Nah, not at all. We write our inventory without considering the 5th step. We work for step 4 as if there were no step 5. Remember that. We can write alone, near other people. Whatever is more comfortable to the writer is fine. We can write as long as or as short as needed. Someone with experience can help. The important thing is to write a moral inventory. If the word moral bothers you, we could call it a positive negative inventory. The way to write
an inventory is as simple as it sounds, to write it. Thinking about inventory, talking about it, theorize.
What's the way to write it?
Write it.
Oh.
We sit down with a notebook, ask for guidance, pick up our pen, and start writing. Anything we think about is inventory material. When we realize how little we have to lose and how much we have to gain, we begin this step.
Straight up.
A basic rule of thumb is that we can write too little, yet we can never write too much. The inventory will fit the individual. Perhaps this seems difficult or painful. It may appear impossible. We may fear that being in touch with our feelings will trigger an overwhelming chain of reaction of pain and panic. We may feel like avoiding the inventory because of fear of failure. We ignore our feelings and tension because too much for us. The fear of impending doom is so great that it overrides our fear of failure. An inventory becomes a relief because the pain is doing it less than the pain of not doing it. We learn that pain can be a motivating factor in recovery. Thus, facing it becomes unavoidable. Every topic for a step meeting seems to be on the fourth step, or doing a daily inventory. Through our inventory process, we are able to deal with all things that can be built up. The more we live our program, the more God seems to put us in a position where issues surface. When issues surface, we write them down. We begin enjoying our recovery because we have a way to resolve the shame, guilt, and resentment.
Hello.
I mean, we still sit in bed, like before we go to bed, like we'll still, after our prayer, we'll still be like, okay, do you have anything? Like, do you have like any resentment or any problems that you want to talk about? And in a sense, it's us taking that daily inventory.
Yeah, because I mean, I advise you, wherever you are, to ask yourself every night, right before you go to bed.
Is there something I could have did better?
Straight up. You just ask yourself, like, what could I have done today better? And you'll sit there and it's like an inventory. It's like a self-assessment. Like, today, okay, I did this. Damn, I was a little out of pocket right there. Maybe I shouldn't have came at old boy like that. You feel me? Or whatever the reason may be, you know. Maybe you seen a homeless dude. You had that extra change and you said, brushed it off. That he might have needed it more than you did. Who knows? You know what I mean? But, you know, there's something you could have done different today, or something you could have done, you know, for a different outcome. So, you know, it's an inventory that you could do yourself. Just, you don't have at night. That's not the fourth step. This is just a personal inventory late at night that you could do on a daily basis
to keep it going. I mean, once you finish your 12 steps, it's recommended to go back in and do them again, because there might be stuff that has surfaced, stuff that has come to you in your recovery, and you just want to just keep it going. Just keep it like a revolving credit card. Just keep it going. Just keep it going. You know, and you're going to keep building that credit, keep building that credit, keep building that momentum. And I mean, I'm not saying you're going to have to do it for the rest of your life, or you may, you know, but you keep it going and you keep that momentum going. And just like we worked on our addiction, worked on staying high, do that in your recovery. And I guarantee you the benefits will be 10 times more than you guys ever even imagined.
All right. She's right. The stress.
Say that again?
She's right.
I got that on
tape. The stress,
tape.
once trapped inside of us, released. Writing will lift the lid off the pressure cooker. We decide whether we want to serve it up, put the lid back on it, or throw it out. We no longer have to stew in it. You hear that? Once you put that out on paper, you decide what you're going to do with it. Alright? You're going to put the lid back on that motherfucker. You're going to throw it out. But you no longer have to stew in that. You no longer have to deal with that. You no longer have to carry that. You hear me? You don't have to. It's your decision what you're going to do with it. We sit down with the paper and pen and ask for our God's help in revealing the defects that are causing pain and suffering. We pray for the courage to be fearless and thorough, and that this inventory may help us put our lives in order. When we pray and take action, it always goes better for us.
Yes.
You pray and take action. Remember, prayer without works is dead. You feel me? So you got to take action. You know what I mean? Your prayers can't be praying for something, expecting it,
and then
but
you not
doing
do
nothing
the work
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like you're going to ask for a motherfucking car. You're going to ask for a house. You're going to ask for a better bank account, a nicer bank account. or with a bunch of numbers in it, you're gonna ask for all these things, but you just expect your higher power to just be like, whoa, whoa,
Okay,
whoa,
those are kind of materialistic things. Let's say,
well, a lot of people ask for that, but they don't do nothing for them.
Right.
You have to work for these things.
Okay, so let's put it like you pray for a better relationship with your family, or you pray that they trust you again. You know, like you pray for it, right? You have faith that God is going to work in your favor. But you have to do the works. You have to give them something to trust. You have to call them. You have to show them you're working your steps. You have to show them that you're a good person again. You put your action, let God work his little thing, or not his little thing, his big thing, you know, and it all comes together and boom.
Who's thing? Oh.
Okay, maybe that wasn't a good but you know. You gotta work. You gotta work the work. It works if you work it.
But remember this. Remember this. We're not gonna be perfect. If we were perfect,
ever,
we would not be human.
And we want to be us. You know what I mean? So
the important thing is that we do our best. We use the tools available to us, and we develop the ability to survive our emotions. We do not want to lose any of what we have gained. We want to continue the program. It is our experience that no matter how searching and thorough, no inventory is off any lasting effect unless it is promptly followed by equally thorough fifth step. So basically, it's going to be a little cliffhanger for y'all today, because it's telling you, do your 4-step thoroughly.
Step 4 is part 1.
It's going to be pointless without step 5.
That would be part 2.
Which is going to be next week. But let's concentrate on step 4. Doing this step. And again, like, I can't stress out enough how many times I've seen people relapse, how many times I've seen people come back into a program, how many times I've seen people try to come back into this recovery society, this environment, and when you ask them what happened, most of the time, 75% of the time, they're gonna say, to be honest with you, I wasn't honest with myself when I did my 4-step. I still held on to shit. I wasn't, some of them probably weren't aware that they still had those things going on in their life. Or some of them were just too prideful to be honest with somebody else, because, you know, you're gonna, this is something that you could walk with your sponsor, and your sponsor is gonna read over this, and sometimes your pride gets in the way and it doesn't allow you to be honest. And the problem with that is that it does have an effect on the rest of the steps. The rest of the steps are not gonna fucking fall into place if you're not doing this shit honestly from step 1.
And then you walk into that recovery with that lingering over you. And then how do you expect to live an abundant, full life if you still got fucking whatever is fucking with you, you know? And so you gotta let it go, and you gotta be honest with yourself. Honesty is key.
You know, if you strive, the word integrity is like, I know a lot of people overuse it, but if you live a life of integrity, and you start these steps off with that goal in mind, saying, okay, I'm gonna do right whether anybody's watching or whether nobody's watching, whether everybody's watching. I'm gonna do what's right for my life, and I'm gonna be a man that's transparent, with no lies, nothing hiding, nothing consciously bothering me. Because why? Because I'm open, I'm being honest about everything, and everything else falls into place. You don't have to worry about that. Nothing else. When something arises in your future, you're gonna know how to handle it, because you know what? I'm not hiding anything. I'm not lying about anything. So when something does arise, you could stand up for yourself, defend yourself, and not question yourself with like, damn, did I do that? Am I, you know, if no questions are asked, because you're living right. And it's important that you do this step just with honesty, and don't be scared. Like I said, it's not something to try to shame you or feel bad about yourself, but it's so that you could recognize it. You know, I know from experience, me doing my steps, I was able to realize that I was expecting something that I was resenting. I don't know if that makes sense to you right now, but I was expecting forgiveness for something from someone that I was actually holding resentment for somebody else that they had done to me. So I'm like, man, but I didn't even recognize it, that I was living with this my whole life. I was living with this resentment, and yet I was expecting something from someone else that was going through probably the same resentment towards me. But until I put it on paper and my sponsor was able to call me on it and be like, damn, you're expecting this, but yeah, you're holding on to this. It makes no sense. And I was like, fuck. Like, it clicked to me. I'm like, damn, this is why we do this shit with somebody else. And why we have to be honest, because I never knew that was going on. And that brought a whole different perspective for me and saying, damn, I know I gotta fucking forgive this person in order for me to expect that person to forgive me. I can't be that hypocrite that says, okay, I want forgiveness, but I'm not gonna forget that motherfucker, what he did. No. You have to be honest with yourself. And, later on in the steps, we're going to get to all those amendments. But right now, it's like you have to write them there so that you can recognize them and you can deal with them. You can't deal with a problem unless you recognize that it's a damn problem. And you won't recognize the damn problem if you don't put it on that piece of paper so we can see what it is.
Because then you just leave it up here. If it's not on paper, by writing it on a piece of paper, you're releasing it from here. Like, we know our deepest, darkest secrets. We know what is hindering our growth. So take it out of here, put it on paper, and even in that moment, it's empowering because now you kind of released it. Not all the way, but you released it a little bit on some level. And then you work that step with your sponsor, and it's going to take you to the next step 5. And that will be next Friday. So stay tuned. Next Friday is step 5. We love you guys. The shades are to protect you guys, not us. We are sunburned, from the beach, living life, sober life. If anybody ever needs any kind of help with sober living, getting into a program or anything, hit us up. We definitely have the right people that can help. If ever you need or have any questions or just want to talk or vent, or if you're working your steps and you got a question, we're real people. So hit us up any which way you guys know. And just let us know. We love you. We appreciate you guys. And stay tuned. July 1st is the release of the new merchandise. Woo, woo. Promote us, guys. Promote us.
Clean team, man. There's some of that DVR shit right there.
Yes. And if you guys didn't go to DVR, let me just put this out there. If you guys didn't go to DVR and you have something that you want to
still rep
represent,
that shit.
Let us know, and I could customize your guys' shirts.
We
love you guys.